What's up, Raven friends? Welcome back to the Moonlit Raven. Thank you for joining me today. First and foremost, I would like to extend my deepest apologies for the late book review. I got sick and I just wanted to make sure that I gave myself enough time to fully recover so that I could do this review properly without worrying about a scratchy voice or anything like that. I'd like to start the book review off first by saying, one, if you're not a reader, you're not somebody who, it's just not your thing, feel free to sit this one out. Totally okay with that. Also, a disclaimer, sort of warning type of deal. If you're anybody who has trigger warnings, who is sensitive to anything gruesome, gory, you might want to sit this one out. Also, this might not be the book for you because this definitely has a lot of that. There are explicit sort of details of some very gruesome, gory death scenes in here. Death scenes to animals also. I mean, obviously it's about hunting, so, but not just deers. There's a couple of dogs in here also. So if you're somebody who's sensitive to that kind of stuff, I wouldn't recommend this book for you. This might not be something for you, and you might not want to, this might not be the video or the book for you. But yeah, so now that I've got that out of the way, let's talk about this book. So this, I have mixed, very, very mixed feelings about this book. Even right now, like I'm still sitting here trying to decide how I feel. It was very love-hate. Like I loved it, I hated it, I loved it, I hated it. Like just back and forth the entire reading process. I'm going to try my best to avoid spoilers, but I can't guarantee that I'm going to be able to avoid spoilers. So the book follows 4 men. So it's Ricky, Lewis, Gabe, and Cassidy. And I think they introduced them sort of in that exact order throughout the book. But 4 Native American men who have sort of committed a, not a crime, but they kind of disobeyed the hunting rules on their reservation. So because of that whole situation that they went through, they ended up regretting it, and it kind of haunted them for over the span of the next 10 years. And on the 10-year anniversary, they kind of, it comes back to haunt them. Like I said, love-hate relationship. I'm trying to find the words to describe it. So, I guess my initial thoughts, hopefully some of you who are watching this have also read it as well, and you kind of understand what I'm talking about, or, I don't know what your experience might be, but it felt like it dragged on, to tell you the truth. It took so long to kind of get to a point of where I was trying to kind of put the pieces together. I felt like it dragged for the first good half of the book, I want to say, and I was very close to quitting the book. I hate doing that. I honestly do. I have done it before with books that I just felt like, I don't want to waste any more of my time if I feel like it's going nowhere. However, I stuck it out to the end with this one. I pushed through. It does get to the point eventually, and it gets to this one very graphic scene that it kind of drew me in, and I was reading it, and I had to stop the chapter, and I called my husband, who was at work, and I was like, you gotta read this chapter. Like, you gotta read this one scene. And he was like, okay, as soon as I get home, I'm gonna read it. And he did, and even he was like, wow. So it's definitely not short of, if you're somebody who's looking for that gruesome goriness factor in a book, it has that. It definitely does. And it got to that scene. However, I felt like the book went like this. It starts off and it kind of dragged, got to that like one scene, and then it just dipped down. It like took a while to just kind of get to the next point of what was going on. And at this point I was just like, okay, this doesn't seem like it's going anywhere. Something else that I wanted to point out is, for it being about 4 main characters in the book, again, Ricky, Lewis, Gabe, and Cassidy, those 4 men, for it being about, the story being about the 4 of them on the event of, you know, the night of what happened to them or what they did, I don't feel like each character was given equally enough time to get to know the character. And I don't know if that bothers anybody else out there, but that's something with me where when I read a book, I really like to get to know the characters. And the way it starts off, it starts off with Ricky, but it was barely just a little bit. I mean, he's mentioned here and there throughout the book, but I don't really feel like I got enough details or got enough time to get to know more about him. So that left me confused. I felt like it focused too much on one character, where after a certain amount of time reading, I thought it was only about Lewis, because it focused so much on him, and then he's just completely wiped out and taken out of the picture, and it transitions on to the last 2 characters, which are Gabe and Cassidy. And you kind of get to know a little bit more you get more details about them at the end of the book once it transitions to their parts, at least definitely more than the first character, Ricky. So the writing style, I guess, of the author, I don't know, I guess maybe that's his writing style. This is the first book that I've read by him, and I just was not used to that style of writing. I would like to get to know, if they're going to be the main characters, I want to be able to spend time with each of those characters equally and feel like I know them, because it was so much confusion for me. So there's that. The other thing, I guess, talking about, you know, it's about hunting and this sort of entity that's following them around, which I honestly thought was like the Wendigo, because I know that's kind of associated with Native American culture. So I thought, and I think that's kind of what it is, but I'm not 100% sure. And I won't give away completely the details about it, so that way if somebody, you know, if any of you guys out there still want to read it, you'll get to find out the, you know, the whole backstory of this entity. I always struggle with that word. I don't know why. I want to like enunciate. I don't know if you're supposed to enunciate it, entity or entity. I don't know which one it is. But anyways, so I won't give too much detail about that character, so that way people who do want to read it, you can find out on your own. But when it does give the backstory of this creature, something that it made me think about, I don't know if this is kind of purposely what the author was trying to portray, but it made me think a lot about women's rights and women's rights to their bodies. And I say that because I know the book came out in 2020, so that whole movement with women's rights, women's abortion rights, I know that didn't happen till after, but I feel like with the way the book is described and the creature that we're talking about, I feel like that's kind of what I don't know if that's how I portrayed it, what the author was kind of talking about. Okay, sorry, I know I'm rambling a lot back and forth about so many things about this book, but it's just because this is how I get when I read books. Like, my mind starts going in a million different directions, and me trying to put pieces together and trying to figure out what the author meant, or what was the moral of the story, what was trying to be portrayed. So as I was trying to say, I feel like the author was trying to take a play on women's rights to their bodies. Because if you read it, you guys will kind of understand why. And then also when I read the acknowledgments, which I'm going to go ahead and read right here, this is also what made me think about it. He says, and I'd be lying if I didn't also cite the 7th episode of season 1 of Masters of Horror, Dear Woman, by John Landis. I really liked how that woman kicked whoever needed kicking in that story. I want that for all Indian women. I also want them to live too, please. Some of them are my sisters, my nieces, and all of them are my cousins, my aunts. So he makes that quote, and like the whole relation of what happens to this creature and what's going on with this creature's backstory. This is kind of where it made me feel like the author was delving into the topic of women's rights for their bodies. So there was that, which I thought that was pretty cool. I definitely give the author credit for that. Yeah, so it's got the gruesomeness. It's got the gory scenes. It definitely has that. I just feel like the characters, the way the characters are sort of their timeline in the book, I feel like it didn't really make sense to me. So I would have liked for that to be better. The storyline is there. The moral behind the story, I guess we'll say, the gruesomeness, the details, the attention to details for those gruesome topics is there, those gruesome scenes. So all of that is there. It's just the storyline, timeline of those characters, and definitely needing more attention to detail, I guess. I don't know, maybe that's just me, but I like to really feel like I'm like if I'm there with the character. But yeah, other than that, like I said, it was just very, very back and forth on my feelings about this book. You would have to give it a read for yourself, or if you have, maybe you can relate to me in what I'm, how I feel about this book. If you have read it and you had a similar or different experience, let me know just overall in the comments what your experience was with this book, because I feel like I need to talk to somebody else who's read this book. And I did see some other people saying that there were a couple of people, when I, looked at reviews, that some people said they did quit the book. I'm glad I didn't, though. I'm glad I did get to the end. But there were some people, it was just a whole mixture of emotions. Some people really loved it. There were some people who they felt like it was just not worth spending the time to read, I guess, and they did quit the book less than halfway there. So I'm glad I stuck it out till the end with this book. Take it how you want to take it. If you guys feel like it might interest you, by all means, read it. If you feel like I've said enough and you don't want to, then again, by all means, that's your choice, to each his or her own. But those are my thoughts on the book. Will I read another book by this author, by Stephen Graham Jones? I don't know, to tell you the truth. I'm very, very picky about authors and authors' writing styles. That's something that, like, it makes a huge difference to me in how my reading experience goes. And if I start reading it and I feel like the author's writing style is not something that I'm comfortable with reading, I don't feel like I can fully get into, then I just won't read it. So will I read another book by this author? Probably not, and mostly because of the writing style. So there's that. But I don't know, we'll see what other people, if there are other people's opinions out there, and again, to each his or her own. I have A lot of books, though, that I am excited to talk about from my personal book collection that I've read over the years, and these are the ones that these books have stuck with me for decades. I will not get rid of these books because they have just touched my soul in a way that I cannot part ways with these books. And some of these books I've read more than once, multiple times, because I just loved the book that much. So the next book, I haven't fully decided what my next book is going to be that I'm going to talk about, because I have two different ones in my mind. Because it is February and it's the month of love, I feel like I want to go with a book that has to talk about either, you know, love in general or just self-love and self-care, which I do have a lot of those types of books also. But I want to do something fiction because I love fiction. So I have two different ones in mind, and I actually brought one of them in here with me because I'm leaning more towards this book. But another warning, I don't know if I'm gonna make it exactly to the date that I set. I know I said I wanted to do my book reviews on the last Friday of every month. However, things happen, such as, you know, I got sick, so my completely very first book review got postponed because I got sick. So there are unforeseeable things that happen, which is, it's understandable. I'm not going to beat myself up over that, but we are also in the process of moving, and I don't mean moving like to just another house in the same city. We're moving to a completely different city hours away. So I don't know how that's going to impact my content and my recording and my book reviews and all of that. So I do want to do my review. I want to keep it up because, again, I really love reading, and I've always wanted to talk to people about the books that I read. But, yeah, I don't know how that's going to impact all of that. So we'll just play it by the ear and see how it goes. They might possibly be very late reviews. It might not be exactly on the last Friday of every month like I had planned. But, so the next one, I think I might do this one. Eleanor Olphin is Completely Fine by Gail Honeyman. Oh my god, I read this one, when was it? 5 years ago I got this one. My husband actually picked it up for me from a, what are those little bird houses that people put out like by their mailboxes at the edge of their yard? They're like little, it's like take a book, leave a book sort of thing. Well, he had found one, and he found me this book, brought it home to me, and I remember reading it, and I liked this book a lot. It's got a very cute story, some very seriousness in it also, because it does talk about, it's based on sort of self-care and self-love, because the main character kind of goes through some things, which I guess I won't give too much detail yet, so that way I can save it for the book review. But I'm thinking of doing this one more than the other one, because the other book that I had in mind that I wanted to do has, it's also about love and self-care and things like that, or self-love is what I mean. But it also has to do with flowers, and I think I want to leave that for when we officially hit spring, I guess. But I haven't fully decided, so it's going to be that one or this one. Eleanor Olphin is Completely Fine by Gail Honeyman. I will let you guys know for sure once I make a for sure decision on which book I'm going to do. I will probably do like a post ahead of time on YouTube. But yes, this is the next one probably. But yeah, that is, I don't know if I have any other thoughts. The Only Good Indians. It has a very beautiful cover. I will say that. Very beautiful cover. The cover, I know you shouldn't judge a book by its cover, but sometimes you do. You can't help it. And this also drew me in. And then when I had heard that it was like in the creepy horror genre, and I saw the deer, and it's like, oh, the Wendigo. Like, I'm like, I gotta get it. And also, when I had gone to go pick it up, I picked it up from my local Bookman's here in Arizona, and literally when I had gone to go look, the employee that works there was taking a customer to the horror section, genre section of books, and she was actually talking to her about this book, and I literally heard her say, it is very gruesome. And she was like, she was telling the customer, if you're not somebody who's about gruesome, don't read it. And the customer was just like, oh no, I'm good, I want it. So she must have been like me. But so that also drew me in. But yeah, like I said, my thoughts were just very back and forth with the book. I almost quit it halfway through. I had a love-hate. Like, it was just like, loved it, hated it, loved it, hated it. And it was just like, I didn't know what to do. And finally, towards the end, it was just like, I want to finish this book and see what it's all about. But if anybody else has any thoughts on this book, you have read it, please let me know in the comments, because I am very curious as to what other people, I would like to hear what other people's thoughts were about this book. Like, what was your experience? How did you feel the same way I felt, or did you feel like it was, I don't know, did you have a completely different experience? I don't know. So let me know down in the comments what you thought about this book, if you read it, or if you are thinking of reading it. I hope I didn't, I hope I didn't ruin it for anybody else or drop too many spoilers or anything like that. 'Cause I really would hate it if I've done that, but hopefully not. But yeah, let me know what you guys thought if you did read it, or if you are thinking about reading it. Also, don't forget, if you haven't already, please subscribe to the Moonlit Raven so you don't miss out on any future videos. Hit your notifications button and drop a like if you liked this video, or don't if you didn't. I don't want to tell you what to do with your life. But that's all. Those are my thoughts on The Only Good Indians by Stephen Graham Jones. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, again, please like, and don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. We'll see you guys in the next book review for the next book. All right, thank you guys for joining me. Take care. Bye, Raven friends. See you later.